Hi everyone, Susan McGarry here, and I am going to share with you today everything I know about fused glass decals. And I will share some cool project ideas with you to make with those fused glass decals. Now in the beginning I will be going over a lot of information and tips about decals, so if you just want to skip to the projects, just go to. But you may miss some valuable tips, so I'll go over them quickly. So, lots of companies make fused glass decals, and you can even make your own. But there are too many companies to list here, so I will list them in the description below. If you think of any that I have not listed, please write it in the comments. I'll add it to my description. You can make your own sepia decals with special decal paper and a laser printer. And it comes out like this. You can't get colors with that, but it's something that you can print at a copy center. They have laser printers unless you have your own, and then you can put it on glass and get this color. Or you can make your own colored decals using a silk screen process. I find that a little difficult, but if it's something you want to do, it's definitely something that the home user can do to make color decals in their home. I recently saw an online class where they teach you how to do that silkscreen process to make colored decals at home, and so I'll list that in the description below. You can even use decals that are made for ceramics as long as the temperature range is within our temperature range for fused glass. There are companies that will make custom decals with your designs, and I've done this before, and you get a bunch. You get a big sheet. You can get a bunch on a sheet, so it's pretty cost effective, but you have to be pretty good at photo editing. So that's a little bit of a drawback if you're not good at that. Sometimes they will help you with that and charge you a little bit. I've listed these companies in the description below. If you think of any that are not listed, please comment. I'll add that to my description. And if you are very serious about making decals, you can even buy a decal printer for your home. They're a little bit pricey, but you can make all the black, white, color decals you could ever want. You can do it if you're going to make a large amount of decals. It might be cost effective, or if you want to start a business making decals. I've listed the companies below, and if you think of any that I haven't thought of, please comment. I'll add it to my list. Some companies make decals that maybe have earrings to match. So you could do the pendant and earrings together, and they cover a small area. But some companies will do sheets, bigger sheets, maybe 4x4, and that design will cover a large area. And even ones where they are white or black, and you can cut out your own design if you want. This is the largest decal I own. It's huge. Most decals come with their instructions on whether to cap it or not cap it, or temperature range that they mature best at. So it's important to keep these instructions with your decals. If they don't come with instructions, it's important to contact the manufacturer and ask them those questions, and then keep those instructions with it. If you don't use those decals right away, by the time you do use them, you'll forget where you got them or what the firing instructions are. If you don't fuse it hot enough, the colors won't mature and it will come out dull, but you can always refire it to get it up to that perfect temperature. But if you fire it too hot, you can burn out some of the colors, and also the glass will start to spread possibly, and it will crack your decal. So it's really important to stay in that ideal range. So you might want to test new decals. But usually temperatures between a tack fuse and a slump fuse work best. And that's usually when the glass gets sort of sticky, but not moving. Most decals, all that I've ever used, work on any COE glass. So it doesn't matter what glass you're working with, you just have to stay within that temperature range. The color of glass you use will be dependent on the decal. White decals, of course, work best on black or darker colors, and black decals work best on white or lighter colors. Color decals, All depends. You might want to test it or see what your manufacturer has put the decal on in their examples. So follow those examples. You just don't want to put a black decal on a very dark or black glass. You'll never see it. If by chance you put a decal on and it's completely ruined, you've overfired it, or you put a black decal on black glass, you can always sandblast or etch the glass or use your Dremel and grind it off, fire polish it, get that smooth surface again, and then start over, put a new decal. By the way, I have a favorite white glass. When I am fusing with COE 90, I'm usually using bullseye glass, but not always, and I want a white glass. My favorite is 013 white. And the reason is I did a test. And I tested bullseye glass and Ouroboros glass and keep this in a binder. And what it showed me was I put a little black stringer between 2 layers of glass, and I documented the date I did it, the full fuse COE 90, 2 layers of white glass with a 1 millimeter black stringer in between. And then I kept track of which colors they were. And it turned out that 013 opaque white was the densest. I couldn't see the black stringer very well, so it was a very dense color, very opaque, and it was the brightest white that I could find. I did notice that sometimes on the 313 dense white, actual dense white, it wasn't as bright as 013, and sometimes I get devitrification. It's a very difficult glass to work with. So even though it says dense white, I go with opaque white. That's my favorite. You can do your own test. Now, I do these tests. I put them in a binder. So this will go in a sheet protector, just like all of these other tests that I've done. I do the same thing. I date them, and I write down everything I did on the test that day, and then I save them in this binder. I think it's time for a new binder. It's getting kind of full. Now, most companies recommend that you put the decal on top of pre-fired glass. So you would put your layers of glass together and pre-fire it to a full fuse to the size you want. But some companies actually say you can, or recommend that you do, put the decal between 2 layers of glass. And so in this case, it's white on the bottom and clear on the top, and then you would fuse it. The problem with doing this regularly is sometimes the glass will move, those decals will crack and spread with the glass, but also the colors may not be as bright because you're going up so high in temperature. So for today, I believe all of the ones we're making will be on pre-fired glass. I've already fired the cabochon waiting for the decal. So let's get started and do some decals. Okay, we're going to start with this cute little hummingbird, and you can fuse your glass first, but it's hard to know what size you're going to need, so I generally trim my decal out first, then fuse my glass. Today I fused it ahead of time. Okay, if you noticed, there is a protective sheet over this. You pull that off, and the reason the manufacturer puts that on there is their covering on this is sticky, and they don't want decals to stick together, so they put that coating on. If you forget to take that coating off and you fuse it, especially between layers, you end up with something like this. That paper gets stuck in there, it burns up, creates a big bubble. Here's my note: forgot to remove paper coating, black bubble. Ugh, what a disaster. That was supposed to be 2 little butterflies. Okay, this one is very colorful. I want it on white glass. Clear glass may not show it. Here's one of my other examples. It shows what I did, how hot I fused it. And for this manufacturer, again, they suggested I put it between layers of glass, but I forgot to remove that paper coating, got all those black spots. But also, it needs white backed glass because those colors, you just can't see them on clear, right? So I want to put them on white. So we're going to go ahead and put this on white. We're going to need a piece of glass, and in this case I pre-fired the glass like I mentioned. I did a full fuse, 2 layers of glass, and I put clear on the back because clear is a little cheaper than white, so instead of 2 layers of white I did clear on the back. Okay, and my decal will fit on there now. I need a tray of water. Most manufacturers will recommend distilled water. I have done it with regular tap water before and it worked out just fine. But if you're concerned about it and you can get distilled water, I say go for it. You're also going to need isopropyl alcohol. I prefer something in the 90s. I happen to get 99% isopropyl alcohol, and I'm going to use that to clean my glass. Let's start by putting our decal in the water. You can see it curls up, and that's just the water absorbing into the backing, the paper backing. And what we're trying to do is get that decal to release off the paper backing. And so once the water gets soaked, that will lift off of the paper. While that's soaking, I'll clean my glass. And some manufacturers will recommend that you wear gloves when you do this because you don't want fingerprints or oils on the glass. So if you're not wearing gloves, try not to touch the glass after you've cleaned it. And I've decided I'm going to do a second little one, little colorful one, so I'm going to go ahead and clean that one now and put the decal in the water. If your water is warmer, it lifts off faster, but there's no hurry. You don't want to rush this. See how it's starting to slide right now on the water? If it wasn't ready and I started to push on it, I could tear it. So you really want to wait until it's ready. And if by chance you leave it in here too long and it starts to float off the paper, you don't want to pick that up with your fingers. Again, you don't want to touch the back of that. So you can just scoop it up with your paper. And then I like to wet my glass. And see how I've got the little edge touching the glass? Just the edge. And I hold it and slide the paper out. Now the paper backing, I just throw that away. So what this is a clear sort of plastic that has all of these colors printed on it. And when we fire it, the clear plastic will burn off and the colors will be embedded into the glass. And so what I'm doing now is trying to press out all that water. It's okay to touch it now because I'm not touching under the decal or on top of the glass. And being very gentle, you're going to want to smooth out all the water and all the air bubbles from under that decal. If you leave any water under there, it could steam and create a spot where the decal doesn't transfer, and if you leave any air under there. So some companies will actually recommend that you let this dry for several hours so that there is no water under there before you fire it. So I'll set this aside. That's ready to go in the kiln. And let me start with this one. Yep, it's starting to move. So I'm going to put a little bit of water on there, and that helps me move the decal around. Set the decal on the edge. See how it's off of the paper just a little bit. Hold my finger on it and pull the paper out. And then I can move it into position. Now I want to blot that water out. And it can move just a little bit right now. It can't move as freely because I got most of the water out. Now I'm going to push really hard. I want to get all that water out. And when you're sort of squeegeeing with the paper towel to get the water and air bubbles out from the center, you want to be very gentle. You don't want to tear your decal. Okay, project number 2 is done. We'll put that in the kiln. So remember to use the manufacturer's recommended temperature for the decals. It's generally between 1225 degrees Fahrenheit to 1500 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is 660 Celsius to 840 Celsius. I've found the lower temperatures are better at keeping the colors bright, and so for this one I'm going to use 1375 for 10 minutes. And that would be 745 Celsius for 10 minutes. Okay, here they are out of the kiln. And I kind of have to hold them because the reflection of the glass, the light is making it hard to see the glass. But look at those colors. Those are gorgeous. I absolutely love them. This one I might have, if it wasn't for a YouTube video, I might have put this on a larger piece because I think it's a little big to wear as a necklace. But you know what could always be done? You could take it to a ring saw and cut this out and make it a necklace. Maybe that's an earring, maybe that's an earring, and make this hummingbird a necklace. That would be pretty interesting. So it's not lost. You know, I like working small. This one, what a great size, what great colors. That is absolutely gorgeous. So if you like big pendants, you could always add a bail to that. Or, like I said, cut it up. But for this one, I would pick my favorite bail, glue that on, and you know how I do that. I grind the spot a little bit with my Dremel. I add some E6000 onto the pad. I press it down, wait 24 hours, then I actually stick it in my oven at 275 for 20 minutes, let it cool to room temperature, and it's ready to wear. If you like big pendants, you could use a big bail on this one. You could do some wire wrapping on that one. Both very gorgeous. Very happy with how they turned out. Okay, next I am going to put this white decal, kind of hard to see, on this black glass. This manufacturer leaves their white decal white, but puts it on blue paper so that you can see it. It would be hard to see if it was on white paper, white backing. So they put it on a blue backing. I've never fused this one before, so I'm going to do a little test. But I would imagine I could always put another thing on top of this pattern, another decal. But I think I'd want to fire it first and then add the next decal. Alright, it looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and fire this to the same as the other ones, up to 1375 Fahrenheit, 745 Celsius for 10 minutes. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, this is all done. It worked very well. The white shows up great on that black glass, nice and shiny. And I want you to notice, that is not on top of the glass. It can't be rubbed off. That is in the glass, because what they use for decals is enamel paints. And when you fire it to that sticky level, it embeds into the glass. So it's enamel glass sticking to fused glass. So it's permanent. Now this could be worn just how it is. You could add a bail to it, or you could add something on top of this. Add another decal on top of it, fire it again. But very happy with how that turned out. Could be a great test for using the rest of the decal on a larger piece. Maybe the center of a little tray or something. Really neat pattern, and it came out great. Very happy with it. Okay, next I'm going to put a heart on a blue piece of glass. It's a cobalt blue. I have already soaked it. And now let's slide it on, and you'll see that this is white paper and a white decal. So what they've done is tinted the white. That will burn off, and it should become a white heart. But it'll be a surprise to me too. Remember to take that paper coating off the top, that little paper protective layer. Once it gets wet, it's very difficult to remove. And for this, I just cut 2 square pieces of glass, nipped off the corner of both of them, and fused them together so that I would have a place for my bail at the end. And I'm going to fuse this at 1375 Fahrenheit, which is 745 Celsius, for 10 minutes. This is how the cobalt blue and that decal turned out. I thought it might be white, but looking at it, I think it's silver. Really pretty on there, on that blue glass, and I really wish that the camera could pick up how gorgeous that blue is. It's hard to see. It's a really beautiful transparent cobalt blue. Because it's so dark, it almost isn't transparent, especially when you wear it up against your skin or something. But that decal just came out great. So very happy with how that turned out. So pick out your favorite bail and glue it on, and you have a gorgeous finished piece of jewelry. Okay, this next one is a circle design, so I'm going to go ahead and drop that in the water, get that started. But let's talk about how to make circles. You can take the time to cut a circle, and in this case I cut a white circle and a clear circle and fused them. So you could cut circles, or you can take glass and stack it and stagger it and get a circle. Now that works great for tiny pieces of glass, and you end up with something like this, a perfect dot. And it works so well that when I have extra scraps of glass, I do this in my kiln in extra space and end up with tons and tons of dots. So if you want an easy way to make dots, you don't have to cut circles, just 2 pieces of glass and stagger it. Unfortunately, when you do that with large glass like this, it doesn't work as well. There's too much space here between this and this. And what happens is you end up with, let's see if you can see that, clear areas and white areas. So the other option is to take this glass and just nip off the edge with your grozers. You can just break off the edge, and you end up with something that's a little square but rounded. So we still don't have a circle yet. And this is what it would look like if we just put 2 square pieces on top of each other. So a little rounded on the corners. Here I can see that clear and that white. So the way to solve that is we need 6 millimeters of glass. So we can take 3 thin pieces of glass. That'll equal 6 millimeters instead of 2 3-millimeter pieces of glass. We're going to use a 2 millimeter, a 2 millimeter, and a 2 millimeter. We'll still get our 6 millimeters. So I cut squares, and then I just took my glass cutter and scored along the edges here, or along the corners, I'm sorry, and break those off. And what I end up with is 8-sided pieces. Now I wasn't exact with them, right? I just got a basic idea. I want my white on top. So I think I'll start with my clear on the bottom. Hopefully you can see that. And you can line this up exactly with the clear and then just turn it. Just turn it a little bit. And I can see the little points of the clear coming through. Now put this on top and turn it just a little bit. And what you end up with is 3 8-sided shapes that now is a 24 point. And that will give you that rounded piece. That's how this one was made. So if you have thins and you want to make a larger circle, this is the way to do it. Okay, I think our decal is ready. Yep, it's starting to move. And again, I'm just going to hold it in place and slide the paper out. We want to get all that water out. Be gentle with it. Try not to tear it. All right, I forgot to remove the paper coating again. So once it's wet, it's like a wax paper. Once it's wet, it's pretty difficult to get started, to get it off. All right, I got it off. And I could tell because the decal wasn't wrapping around the glass. It felt too thick. Okay, this one's ready for the kiln. I will also use 1375 Fahrenheit, 745 Celsius for 10 minutes. Okay, the circle with dragonflies is all done, and it is beautiful. That is a gorgeous design in a small package, isn't it? That's really pretty. Like I said, now you could add a little paint in this and add some color to it if you want, or just wear it as is. It's just gorgeous the way it is. So again, you're going to pick out your favorite bail. Let's see, maybe this one. Add a bail to it, and you have a finished project. Okay, for this next one, I'm going to combine several decals. I am using this Howling Wolf, maybe, from the Sepia Slides, and I am using bits and pieces from this giant tree. This tree was actually quite large, just very, very large, and I have been cutting little pieces out of it because most of the things I do are small. So I've cut this branch, I've cut this sort of tree cap, and I've got this little wolf or dog, and I have decided to make a moon from this dichro slide paper. It's paper that is coated in dichroic coating. So it acts just like the other decals. We drop it in the water. You want to be very careful to find that again. We will drop this in, and this in. Now some manufacturers will say you should not overlap decals. I've done it before with this decal. I overlapped a lot of these little tiny pieces and did it all in one firing. It turned out great. But again, you're taking your chances. I pre-fired my glass with one piece of clear and one piece of white. Okay, I think our decals are ready. Let's start by wetting the glass. Sliding the decal off. We want to keep them pretty wet so that I can decide where they're going to end up. You can use tweezers, and I probably should have gloves on, but I would have a harder time with this. Now this dichroic is not going to show up really bright because I'm putting it on white glass, but it will still show. And this really is just an example to remind you that you can do many decals. It's not just one. If we all did the same one decal, all of our pieces would look the same. And I want you to have unique pieces, so think outside the box, combine decals, mix them together, cut them up. Okay, can you kind of see that little moon right there? It's a nice glowing moon. I like how that's going to look. And then we've used a branch and a piece of a giant tree to make this smaller tree. And we've got our little wolf there howling at the moon, so we'll throw that in the kiln. And it seems that these manufacturers also agree that 1375 Fahrenheit, 745 Celsius for 10 minutes will work. Okay, this is our finished piece with many different decals, and the wolf or coyote was, remember, a sepia, so that it came out kind of brown. The manufacturer said on it sepia decals, so I knew it was going to come out brown. And this was the tree I made out of pieces from a larger decal, and that was our dichro moon. And look how the moon sort of curled up a little bit. I must not have had it pressed down all the way, and it's sort of burned out part of it, but I love it. It's a 3/4 moon. I think it turned out awesome. So that is a really neat piece. Now pick out your favorite bail, and you could have a really unique piece of jewelry made from 4 different pieces. So now no one will have one just like yours. Okay, so this manufacturer is kind enough to make pendant and earrings matching, so that you can make matching pendant and earrings very easily. So what I'm doing is putting it on dichroic glass. Kind of hard to see, of course, hasn't been fired yet, but I'm not going to put 2 layers. I'm going to do a single layer of glass and only fuse it hot enough so that the edges are smooth. Some people like their jewelry, especially their earrings, very lightweight. So here's a way you can get some dichro and a design in a very lightweight pendant and earrings. Okay, these are pretty delicate. They are single layer, 3mm, might even be 2mm, dichroic glass. So I am going to fire this as low as I possibly can and still get that decal to fuse on there. So I'm going to go at about 1325. I think that should be enough to smooth the edges but still get that decal to stick to the dichroic glass. And we'll see how that turns out. Alright, you know me well enough to know that I will show you not only my successes but my failures. And I was a little concerned about the decal sticking to dichro. And look at that, it's rubbing right off. So it was a nice try, but it didn't work. Now I had a feeling when it went into the kiln, so I decided to make some more to go with it. So I quickly put these together, and this is just white glass, you know my favorite, 013, and a decal on top of it. The same company, they create the earrings to match, the earring decals to match. So I went ahead and made this out of white glass. This is just 3mm, and I fired it the same as that one at the same time. And now I've got a really lightweight set of jewelry, and I could add a small bail to it. This is a tiny bail. It's called a small. And I could add an earring bail and an earring wire, and really lightweight set of jewelry because it's just that single layer of glass. But I did another one at the same time. So I found this really beautiful green. I added these round decals onto square glass, and this measures about 1 inch by 1 inch, and this is a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, and put the decals on there. Again, fired them at the same time as these other two, and look how beautiful that came out. That is a gorgeous jewelry set, and super lightweight because it's only that 3mm piece of glass. So again, add your bails to it and you have a lightweight set of jewelry. Okay, I cut out my dolphins and they are soaking in the water. I pre-fired my glass. Let me show you how I made that. In this case, I took a 3mm piece of black and some dichroic glass. I'm putting the dichroic glass face down, so I want the dichro down, and that gives this dichro sort of an underwater look. It's under the clear, right? Because it's capped with a clear. Here's the dichroic coating. We put that down. And then I take a little sliver of the black. So this is 1 1/4 inches wide, and the black is 1 1/4 inches tall, so that's a full 1 1/4 inch square. But for the dichro, I only did 1 1/4 by 1 inch, and that last quarter I put that little piece of black, and I fired it to a full fuse. I did that also with white. Ended up with these two pieces. Now I'm going to slide these dolphins on it, and the reason I did it in black and white is I thought, let me test it. Let me test these black decals on the black and white and see how it differs, but I wanted to do it on the dichro. I wanted to see what that would look like. You know what, I think I'm going to move this one over to here. This one's a little smaller. I don't want it to blend in with that black glass up there. This one looks like he's popping out of the water. Kind of cool. Little baby following along. This one, I can't really see. I think it came out too dark. but I'll fuse it anyway. We'll see what it looks like. I will fuse these at the 375 Fahrenheit, 745 Celsius for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and see what they look like. Okay, this is the finished dolphin on dichro, and it's hard to see the dolphins because the dichro is so colorful. I do have examples of dichro and decals, and it came out great because of the matte finish and the yellow contrast with the black decal. So you want to do a test before you do this, but I think that turned out great. Very subtle, but the white one didn't turn out so good. Look at that. Remember, I put the decal up over the white and it actually split. I tried to put it into the crevice there and it split. So what I did was make a second piece, and I didn't put the dolphin into the crevice. I kept it on the clear side of the dichro when I fired it, and that turned out much better. So now I could add my favorite bail to that one. And this would be what I would choose to make. If I had to choose, obviously, between these three, I would choose that one. So I think that was a success. Alright, remember what I said. If you don't like the decal, you can grind it off. So I've got my handy dandy Dremel here. I am going to grind off that decal and fire this glass to polish it again. So make sure you're wearing a mask and gloves if you want to. And I'm going to do it in water to keep the particles from getting too airborne. Okay, so that decal had become part of the glass. Remember, it's not just on top, it's actually part of the glass. So I used my rotary tool there and ground off the top layer of the glass. Now it's very matte finished, you know, it's dull, and I want it shiny again, so I'm going to put it back in the kiln at 1350 or 1360 degrees for 10 minutes. That's in Fahrenheit. I think that's around 740 Celsius. And then get it shiny again. And at that point, I can put a new decal on or just leave it as is. I'm not too happy how this one turned out either, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same to this one. So when I bought these decals, they didn't come with any instructions from the distributor, so I had to call them and find out how they were best fused and fired. And they recommended that they go in between layers of glass. But I know most decals can go on top of glass. So I thought I would try an experiment, and what I did was take the edges. See how the edges, these butterflies go off the edge? There are little pieces, and I did some tests on, this is like a butterfly wing that was on the edge of the glass. This actually was 2 full butterflies, but what I was trying to do was do layers. First test it between layers and then add layers of glass. And what that is a butterfly between layers and a butterfly on top. Here it is, a butterfly between layers, but just an additional wing on the top layer. And so I've documented how I did those and what I fired it to, and this got fired hotter than I would normally because I need to fuse the 2 pieces of glass together. So this gets fired a little hotter, but let me show you how I did it. I started out putting 1 decal on the bottom piece of glass, and I'm going to cap it with clear so that I can see that decal. Let me move these. And I take a second butterfly or a second wing and slide it onto the top piece of glass, and now I can put that anywhere I want. If I want to put it up here or in the corner. Now I had already placed this piece of this decal on this piece of glass. Otherwise I think I might have moved it over a little bit. But we'll see how this turns out. And remember, I'm going to fire this one a little hotter. I'm going to fire it to 1450 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 785 Celsius, because I want those two layers to fuse together. So let's see how this one turns out. Alright, and this is how it turned out. Isn't that awesome? I don't know if you can see the depth in it, but there is a depth to it because there is a butterfly on the bottom layer of glass and a butterfly on the top layer of glass. So it gives it this really awesome dimension. Now this is something I've done before. So I had some of my favorite glass designs made into decals, and then I put those decals on glass, but in 3 layers. So let's see if you can see the depth in that. The bottom layer has that center, the next layer has this middle square, and the top layer has the outer frame. So all of these had to be brought up to a full fuse. So the colors are still really good, but they're not quite as bright as if I had done a lower temperature. So keep that in mind. But doing these different layers, just like on this butterfly, a lot of fun to do. A lot of fun to get that dimension with your decals. Okay, if you watch one of my earlier videos, it was on using micas in glass. I'll put the link to it above so that you can find that if you want to. For this, I had done a test on these micas to see if it looked best on clear, white, or black, and I prefer the black by far. And so their colors come in not black backed, clear, so that's these guys up here, and black backed, and that just means they took the backing paper and they sort of sprayed a coating on it. So this is black enamel backed, and they sprayed a black enamel paint and then put the mica coating. And so these can be used on any color of glass and they will show up just like they did here. So let's see, here's lilac with black backed, and here is lilac without any black backing. So you can see you can't see it on white or clear. Over here, black glass, you can see the black backed one or the one without the black back, right? But I do like the way the colors look on the black, so I'm going to do this on a black piece of glass. I am going to use a punch, and I'm going to punch a few of these and sort of play with them. So with these mica sheets or these dichroic sheets, you can punch, cut out, use one of those Cricut silhouette type machines, cut out any design you want. I was just picking something easy today. Okay, this manufacturer recommends that you leave the lid slightly ajar and the peephole open until it reaches a temperature of 11 to 1200 degrees. Then you close the lid and bring it up to your desired temperature. And you know what? I've made that a practice on all my decals. I leave the kiln open just for a little while until it reaches that 11 to 1200, and then I can close it and finish the firing. So I will do that for this and all the other decals that I mentioned today. So I'm going to bring this one up to 1350 Fahrenheit, that is 745 Celsius, and hold it for 10 minutes. But I will hold the kiln open just slightly, I mean ever so slightly, about 1/16 of an inch. I'll put some fiber paper in there to hold it open until it gets to that 1200 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we'll see how this looks. Okay, our mica decals are out of the kiln. And what I need to do is clean off, since it's mica, I need to clean off the excess mica. So I'm going to wet a little paper towel, and I want you to watch this. Look at that difference. I'm wiping off the powder of the mica that's on top and revealing the mica that is attached to the glass. I know it's hard to see, so hard to photograph glass, but I think you've got the idea. And I just keep wiping until all of that excess mica is off and we're left with the finished piece. Ooh, the colors are just gorgeous on this one. Now you can add a bail to it. You have a beautiful piece of jewelry. Okay, that was a lot of information for one video, but decals is a big subject and I wanted to cover as much of it as I could. So if you stuck it out for the whole video, hopefully you learned something new or you got some new ideas. And if you did, go ahead and hit that like button below. And if you want to see more of my videos, go ahead and hit the subscribe button below and turn on the little bell to be notified when they're uploaded. So thanks for watching and be cool, honey bunnies. Bye.